And welcome to Life Through the Lens. Tonight, special guest, Thomas Hawk. I'm not kidding, he's really here. Thomas Hawk is one of the most he's over there. Say yo.
He's waiting over there.
He's waiting over there. Yeah, but I got to do the whole drum roll. Drum roll, please. Thomas Hawk, one of the most prolific photographers online today. One of the most prolific bloggers. A deep thoughtivist. I like that. I just made it.
Thoughtivist.
Good one.
Excellent. New word.
He is the co-host of Photo Talk Plus with Lotus Carroll, and some would say a rabble-rouser. Tonight we're going to go, as Trey Ratcliff would say, behind the kimono of Thomas Hawk. Find out some things maybe you don't know about him, because there are things you don't know that you will at the end of this show. So without further ado, we're going to introduce each of our hosts. And I'm Karen Hutton. You can find me online at KarenHutton.com, KarenHuttonPhotography.com, my special project, LilGalleries.com, and here on Google+. And starting to my left, I don't know if that's your right or my left or whatever, we have Anna Nguyen, and we're going to go from there. Go, Anna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Nguyen. You can find me at zanna.com or here on Google+.
Fantastic. Moving on. Kerry Murphy.
Hey, everybody. I'm Kerry Murphy. I'm a photographer. You can find me on Google+, and also at KerryMurphyPhotography.com.
Yoo-hoo! Ron Clifford.
Hi, Ron Clifford. This may come as a surprise to you, but you can find me on Google+ and on ronclifford.com.
And our lovely Tamara Pruessner.
Hello. Another surprise, big one. You can find me on Google+, of course.
No way!
Yes! You can even find me at www.throughtamseyes.com or, Facebook, but we don't really say that word around here.
And Tana Teel.
Hey, I'm Tana Teel, and guess what? I'm here in Google+.
This is already the most revealing show ever.
Ever.
God.
I like giving away secrets.
Do you have a website there, Tana Teel?
I do TanaTeelPhotography.com.
Fantastic. Which leads us to, once again, drum roll, please. I'm just saying, Thomas Hawk.
Uh-oh. It's nice to see what you guys all look like.
Yeah, isn't it? As opposed to all the other shows where we have paper bags on our heads, you mean?
Right, exactly. It was a little...
Yeah.
These hangout things are kind of cool, aren't they? You know, you get to see what people look like.
I know. It's the magic of hangouts.
No, I'm kidding. You guys are all great. I'm a fan for a long time.
You're great, and we've waited a long time to have you on our show, and I'm so glad you managed to rake aside some time for us.
Absolutely. Anytime.
So who is Thomas Hawk? What drives Thomas Hawk to take so many pictures? You have said that you aim to take 1 million pictures. Now, we all know this. We're just kind of getting this whole thing started, setting the stage. Not everyone has met you, believe it or not.
That's true.
So you aim to take 1 million pictures by the time you die.
Take it off.
Have 1 million.
1 million photos before I die. So I've already taken over 1 million pictures, frames. But I want to do processed, finished, photos that are published on the web and accessible to the entire world. And so I want to do 1 million of those before I die. And those are a little bit more work because there's processing involved, and I'm somewhat particular about what I want to put up and what I want to show and what I want to process and all of that.
You have, I'm actually pulling up your website, and I'm going to share it here in a minute. You have such a huge variety, and I've been curious all along. The standard question is why? But when in talking to you, one of the things that I've noticed is the passion you have for photography is just unparalleled. It's unbelievable. You love it. It's like it's in your heart, in your soul. I hear that in high school you never carried a backpack, you carried a briefcase. You have. I'm just trying to reconcile those two things.
Yeah, right.
With a typewriter in it, actually.
No.
Yeah. Which was an odd thing back in, the mid '80s. So I have a typewriter in your view, so I could turn my work in class typed.
Wow.
It's the mobile laptop of the day.
Yeah,
It was one of these
ahead of
old.
the curve.
It was a Brother. It wasn't even a laptop. You had to it was like a little battery-powered Brother.
Right.
Put a piece of paper in so you could type, and it worked. It was pretty cool.
Seriously. Did you write a lot? I mean, is that the beginning of your social media? I mean, you're helping really in social media.
No, I think I just, in high school I was taking a lot of pictures. That didn't have anything to do with the briefcase and the typewriter weirdness. But I did, I took, when I was 15, I rode my bike across America. And that, as part of that trip, my parents got me my first SLR when I was 15, the summer before that. And that was a film camera, and I shot Kodachrome slide film all across America, from Oregon to Delaware.
Did you do that alone? Were you
No,
alone?
I did it with Taylor University out of Indiana.
Okay.
They had a program. So there were about 60 people, and I was the youngest guy on the trip, except for a kid who was riding a tandem with his dad. So
that's not quite as cool. Just saying.
Do you still have any of those images?
I do, yeah. In fact, one of my projects at some point is going to be to have those slides converted to digital images so I can work with them and use them. But, yeah, so at the time, I started getting into photography. That summer when I got back from the trip, I took my only formal training in photography at all, which is I took, as a high schooler, I took a summer school class at Glendale Community College in photography, where I learned how to develop my own film and bulk roll my film and process and print in the darkroom and all that. And then in high school, I was on the yearbook staff and ended up being the yearbook editor, and so we had a darkroom. So I spent a lot of time in that darkroom and playing with photographs above and beyond just the yearbook stuff. And then same thing for college. In college, I did the yearbook and my student newspaper, and so I spent several years in my high school and college years in a darkroom and shooting mostly black and white film and taking lots and lots of pictures with that SLR. So, I don't know. High school was an interesting time. I was pretty obsessed with photography then too, I think. I've kind of always been obsessed with it.
Anybody who rides a bike across the country is essentially obsessed.
Yeah.
And I just have to go back there for a second, because you were how old when you did that?
About 15.
Wow. And how did you go over the Rockies, or did you go a southern route?
I did. No, we went through the Rockies. We started in Lincoln City, Oregon, ended up in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, and we went through the Rockies. The highest point on the trip was Tahogany Pass. I think that's in Wyoming, which I want to say is like 11,000 feet or so in the Rockies. And so, we went up through there. We went through the Ozarks. We went through, the Great Plains, the Cascades. The Cascades were actually harder than the Rockies because it was the beginning of the trip. And so it was like the second day we were right into the Cascade Mountain Range.
Wow.
Whereas you got a few weeks before you built up to the Rockies. But it was good. Yeah, Ron S. Taylor University was Wandering Wheels. Yeah, that was the name, Ron, of the program.
Yeah, that was from the chat. GF Fletch, is it? Had asked that because they went to that university. So.
Does that mean it was like a fully supported, a supported trip, so you had places to stay and food and water?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, my friend Travis, who was a year older than me, his barber had done it, and he had talked to his barber, and him and I were both riding our bikes quite a bit down in LA and doing centuries, these 100-mile rides and stuff like that. And they went with the university, and there was a bus. You got one duffel bag that the bus would carry. Everything else had to be on your bike. And the bus would drive ahead each day and try to find some place for us to stay. So sometimes it would be in a high school gym, sometime in a church, sometime in a park, sometime we'd be camping out under the stars. But it would try to find a place for us to stay, and there were you know, they did pretty well. And then they would feed us lunch and feed us dinner and feed us breakfast. They did all the meals.
Wow.
So
How long was the trip?
it took 6 weeks. Took 6 weeks.
Wow.
You got to do that when you're 15. You can't do that when you're like any older than that.
Yeah.
At all.
If I had 6 weeks to take off, I would do it again.
Hell yeah.
Would you really?
Oh
I don't know
yeah.
about the riding a bike part. But
Yeah, the riding the bike part would be a little...
No, it'd be a great way. I mean, I know what I'm doing more with a camera now than I did back then, and what a great way to see America. You know, I'd take my camera and I mean, I love America, and you know, it's such a great way to see America, and you see characters, and you know, we went through a lot of major cities, which I like shooting cities as well. But you know, it was I've always been passionate and obsessed with things. I don't do things halfway. I kind of
Full out.
Yeah.
You think was that a precursor for what you do now with all the traveling to the different cities? Kind of sparked your interest back then to do something like that?
Yeah, I think I just get focused. I think I get focused on certain things. Like right now, I'm focused on shooting the 100 largest American cities. So, you know, I'm flying around. I've shot, I think, 31 of them now. And, you know, I'm just going to keep knocking them out one after one after one. I mean, I don't have 6 weeks to take off anymore. But, you know, I could take long weekends and go shoot places. And, you know, I've always been interested in, I think, exploring different places, and especially with the camera.
Are you seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling through because somebody wrote in my stream, I don't know, yesterday, I think, someone I don't know who just saw the notification about the show that you have a distinct style that she has learned to recognize. She knows a Thomas Hawk photo when she sees it, and she says she's always right. And I think these are part of why. You just have a way, it's obvious that you love this country, and it's obvious that you have a very unique way of seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. So.
Yeah, I think my absolute favorite photo that you've taken in the last year has to be the one you shot of Charlie Blake.
Oh yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's Charlie's great. I mean, she's terrific. She's a great friend, and her and Sly both. And that was a fun day. We were shooting this abandoned bunker. It's like an old, I guess it was like housing, military housing in. On Treasure Island, and it was this round circular place in the middle, and I got this new fisheye lens, which I love, the 8 to 15 millimeter Canon 2.8, which is great, and I just thought, boy, here's a circle shot that I could take, and you know, I need a beautiful woman in the middle of it, and Charlie had this mask on, and it was perfect, it was great, so I loved taking that shot. I loved that day. I didn't process that shot for a long time because I'm so far behind on my processing, and I'm so also anal about. That's the shot right there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm so anal about my processing and how I do it, and so finally Charlie and Sly came over for dinner a few weeks back, and Charlie gave me an ultimatum. She said, "You're not allowed to publish any other photographs of me until you publish that photo."
That is fantastic.
It had been a couple of months.
You into it?
Yeah, I don't like publishing a photo until I do the entire day's processing for that day.
Oh,
And I have-
wow. That could take you a while.
It can. Yeah, it can.
Sure.
Normally I can knock out, if I do like a shoot, like an all-day shoot, you know, I might end up with maybe 350 photographs that I finish or so, and I can knock those out in a weekend, usually.
Wow.
So
That's phenomenal.
you said when you did film, you did a lot of black and white.
Yeah.
But you really are, I mean, to me, what is most prevalent about a lot of your work that makes it easily identifiable as yours is your color work.
The color.
So that's interesting to me that you were drawing
Yeah, I
black and
think,
white like that.
you know, I shot color too back then. I shot a lot of slide film, Kodachrome, shot a lot of Kodachrome slide film. But I think I liked black and white because I didn't know how to develop and print color film, and I didn't know how to develop and print black and white. And so back then I had a sort of a love affair with the darkroom, and spent so much time in the darkroom. And for me, it was so magical, watching an image appear as you threw it in the developer and the fixer and the stop bath, and seeing this image come to life right in front of me that I created with my own hands. But I did still shoot color, mostly slides. I don't know why.
Slides was the thing of the day. My dad used to swear by slides.
Yeah, my dad did too. Boxes and boxes and his little viewer thing. Yeah.
That may be a big part of it, because my dad shot slide film as well and had slides. And when I was a little kid, we would watch slide shows of his photographs in the living room.
I think that's why I like working in Lightroom and the grid view so much, is because it reminds me of working on my light table when I was doing slides.
Yeah.
Something very therapeutic about having all those images with the light shining up from behind them. It's like a therapy for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I have a lot of old slide film. I mean, I am going to get that all scanned at some point, and I've got a lot of old, even earlier than that. I got my first camera when I was like 7 or 8, a Kodak Instamatic, and I have boxes and boxes and boxes of little square photos that I took back then.
Wow.
And I want to scan all those as well. I think I could, especially now, I think I can play with them more and digitally alter them, and I think that would be interesting to digitally alter my 8-year-old work.
Sometimes that's good to go back and see your own eyes, that fresh when you were young and just a different time.
Yeah, totally.
I did that with a couple of because I did photography as a in junior college, so in my early 20s, I guess, and I did photography in the darkroom and everything then, and and we had to do selfies. They called them self-portraits back then, but we had to do those and a bunch of other things too. And I've taken photographs of the prints that I made, because that was the closest thing I could come to it, and I've processed a couple of them. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, to revisit the day.
Yeah, it must be. It's been hard for me. I've been wanting to learn how to develop film, but it's getting harder and harder to find the chemicals and people who have, like a dark room at their home, because no one is doing that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think I could ever shoot film again. I liked it, but my style has changed so much now, where I shoot so much.
Yeah.
It's just not really.
It'd be very cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would. But on the other hand, then you think about, you take someone like this last weekend I saw Gary Winogrand's show at the Denver Art Museum, and that guy shot like crazy. He shot like just absurd amount of film. Hundreds of thousands of images all on film.
Yeah.
Wow.
So imagine every time we click that shutter, it's got to be $1, right? So
Yeah.
It adds up.
Yeah, I don't know if it's $1. I mean, if you're Gary Winogrand and you're printing in black, he did everything mostly in black and white, and he did it all himself. And if you're bulk rolling your own film, that's cheaper. If you bulk roll your own film and develop,
Holy cow, that's like a full-time thing. Don't have a life or a job or anything else if you're going to do that.
But now that we have G+, it's a full-time thing. So what's the
there's that. Roll your own one way or the other, right?
That's right.
So I have a question. How come? What was the thing about taking pictures of ears?
That goes way back. Yeah.
There was some digging for information.
Karen did her research.
Wait,
Yeah,
you never. I'm sorry.
I had a thing for ears, particularly if I was dating the woman.
Really?
Wow. All right, go on.
I just I thought they were interesting, and so I shot a lot of ears. I don't know. Maybe it was.
Did the girls ever get freaked out when you said, "Can I please photograph your ear"?
I don't think so. They were most of the women I dated were pretty open-minded back then in college.
Most photographers don't ask to photograph my ears.
Right.
I love that.
Right.
Very artsy. I hear it was very artsy. It wasn't like medical. It was
Right.
I want to be clear about that. It's important to be clear about.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. I think I photographed my high school girlfriend's ear, and then after that, I was like, every woman I dated, I had to photograph her ear. You know, it's kind of like
Focused again.
My wife has a thing. She likes to photograph people's feet, their footwear, what they're doing with their feet, if they're swimming. It's all feet. She's got a whole reams of catalog of just strangers' feet. So it's different for everyone.
Well, it's so interesting because if you take body parts apart, you know, like separate from the rest of them, just the design, just the sheer design of parts is so phenomenal.
Yeah, I don't know. There's groups for people that like to take pictures of feet on Flickr.
I posted one of my child once, and I tagged it feet and realized that was probably not smart.
Not a good idea.
It was like, why is this so popular? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's as many ear fetishes as there are feet fetishes.
No, probably not.
So I was going to say we can't really talk too long, Thomas, about what you've been through without talking about photo walks, especially the one-year anniversary walk that we've all just part in. Where was your walk? How many people showed up? Give us a little insight.
And did you ride the RTD light rail? That's what I want to know.
I did. I did ride the RTD light rail.
Did you hear the announcements telling you where to get off?
Yes, I did. That was you?
That was me, fool.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow.
I told you that.
Were you paying attention?
I kept like looking around for you, Karen. I thought,
yeah, no. Did you remember all your belongings? Because that's part of my job. On that
oh my God.
I did. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent.
I'm there for you everywhere.
No, I did my walk in Denver, which was great. I was in Denver for business anyways, and so Denver is one of the cities that I needed to shoot, one of the 100 largest American cities. And I hung out with so many cool people. It's just, you know, as soon as I started shooting, you know, right away, I mean, not even the photo walk, I just started, like, hanging out with Denverites. Is that what you call them? Denver heads?
Denver.
What do you call them?
I'm sure.
They were great, and you know, I shot the Botanical Gardens with Howard Weitzel, and then Howard and Justin and I drove around shooting neon signs on Colfax, and lots of old, great, really nice old neon signs, vintage sort of stuff there. And on the walk, there were probably, you know, 30 people or so on the walk. It was a good crew. We met at the art museum, and we walked around Colfax, which is kind of this sort of run-down, sort of dumpy area with some characters, and we went downtown and ended up at the Paramount Cafe, and lots of great folks were there. Stan Showalter, who's a new friend that I met there and spent a lot of time with Stan, and you know, Jan Kabili came out, which was great. I always like seeing Jan. So you know, but there was a good crew, and you know, we had a great time. Afterwards, we shot some street photography, and we ended up in this bar called Cruise, which was this really fantastic martini bar that was completely in red. There was just red lights and the whole thing, which from a photography standpoint was beautiful. I got these wonderful shots on the bar. I love reflections, and so I set my camera on the bar, and there were these two women that were down at the end of the bar kind of talking and hanging out drinking martinis. And so I shot down the bar and got these great reflections with the 135, sort of double images of them, and just a great time. We stayed out kind of late, but had a lot of fun. And then Sunday got up and shot all day on Sunday too. Corbin Elliott came out, and Ryan Dirth and Jeff Wilson, and Stan again. So it was pretty much, you know, just sort of non-stop shooting Denver with great people.
How fun.
Thomas, I have never met you where you weren't non-stop shooting.
Yeah, well, I like to get a lot in on these trips. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I do like about photo walks, and not just photo walks, I guess social media in general, whether it's, you know, Google Plus or Flickr before Google Plus or all that, is that I found when I go to a city, I meet the coolest people, including you. That's how we met.
I know, and I was just starting out back in the day when we met.
What city was that? What city did you guys meet in?
Miami.
That was Miami. Yeah. That was, you know, usually I'll say, hey, I'm coming to this city, and I'll kind of throw it out there, and inevitably somebody says, oh, yeah, we got to hang out. and they're usually really super cool people. And so, you know, Michelle Brescher, is that how you say her last name, Anna?
I think it's Brecher.
Yeah, Brescher. I think
Brescher?
that's it. And yeah, at the time she was dating Shanna Jackson, and the two of them, you know, I knew them from Flickr, and so they're like, oh yeah, we're gonna hang out, and we're gonna shoot all this stuff, and you like abandoned stuff, so we're gonna take you to these abandoned places, and I'm like, yeah, cool. And then when we get there, they say, oh, by the way, we have a model showing up. She's really, really great, and she's gonna bring a wedding dress.
That would be good.
It's funny because Circus was like, or I'm sorry, Michelle was, Anna, you need to come and meet this person. He's really famous. I was like, who? And he's like, oh, just to show up and bring the wedding dress.
Look, we have a special guest. Not to interrupt.
Hello.
Surprise!
Hello.
Oh, I know that guy.
You know that guy. This is your... I was like, I think you know Trey Ratcliff.
I've heard of him.
Hello, guys. So I just came in for a minute to say some wonderful things about Thomas, because I think he's a great guy. And then I'll let you guys get back to what you were doing. I don't want to interrupt.
Okay. How about it?
Okay.
It's your show
How
now,
are you,
Trey.
Thomas? It's good to see you.
Good to see
It's
you.
been so long. It's very cold here in New Zealand. I don't know if it's hot where you are or not, but it's very chilly down here.
Scorch.
It's perfect here.
So anyway, Thomas, I'm going to say some very nice things about you, and then I'll leave. Okay. Anyway, so you probably know how awesome and influential you are in my life, and you really are. You do things that. Well, I think one of the best things about you is that you don't care, right? I mean, you care, but you don't care what other people think of you. Like, if they're not part of your world, you just kind of block them, and they're just gone, and you just keep on keeping on. And that's, like, really awesome. There's not enough people that do that. There's too many people that are always worried about what other people think about them. And I find that some of the most interesting and influential people in the world just don't even care. They just go on being awesome like you, and you end up just getting, you know, exponentially more likable for being like that. So I know that's not easy, and I just wanted to, that's sort of a meta thing to say about you, but I think it's awesome.
I agree. I think that's fantastic.
Well, thanks, pal.
And also, what I'm going to do now, Thomas, I hope this doesn't embarrass you.
What?
A little bit, I think.
Oh, I hope
He
it
don't
doesn't.
care if it embarrasses him.
That's right.
Yeah.
He'll just block your ass.
I do like the
No,
walk.
I knew Thomas back when we were getting started in the male porn industry, and I was just an expert.
That's why he doesn't wear pants to hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we both broke into this space, by the way. Sometimes.
Except
Wow.
you were an actor and I was a director.
Yeah, I'll never forget the casting couch. So, no, that's not how I was going to embarrass you.
There's so many other ways to embarrass him. Like, really?
But I am going to fully analyze one of your photos and tell you why I think it's wonderful to me. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen here.
Okay.
Oh, this is awesome.
Great.
Here we go. All right, this is exciting.
Yeah.
Can you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So, you know, I could take pretty much any of Thomas's photos and talk about why they're wonderful to me. But I'll just take this one in particular, and you could extrapolate this to all of his work. So, I think this one is just amazing, and it gives insight, I think, into something deep within Thomas that maybe he doesn't even realize, or he just layers his life on top of something something really, really cool and interesting and different. And this photo is just really a study in ambiguity. And, you know, you can lay whatever reality you want to on top of it, and it almost doesn't even matter. You know, so many photographers nowadays are completely focused on what is literal and what is there, and making everything in the photo perfectly clear, or just telling you everything you need to know in the photo. And they obsess to the nth degree about their optics and their sharpness and their clarity and their noise and all of this stuff. They dissect everything to the nth degree so that it becomes no more, interesting than a courtroom drawing. And this speaks to something else that's going on in Thomas's head. I think that's wonderful. Like this whole area up here, I don't know if you can see my mouse.
Yep, we can.
This whole area up here is just wonderful. Is it red? Is it a dark red? It has lines of purple and sort of a seafoam green and these cornflower blues, and you never know what color it is. It's almost like none of these reds even exist in real life. But they exist in our heads, and I think that's cool. And then just kind of when you're getting lost in these colorations up here, these are sort of these dreamy colors that are just there. Maybe if you've ever taken an afternoon nap and you kind of slowly wake up and your face presses between the veil of the dream realm and the awake realm, and you just see some of this stuff. And then he brings it back with the sharpness down here, which kind of pops out of nowhere. And you don't even know what this is. Is it a landscape? Is it a macro? It doesn't matter. Is it post-processed? Is it right out of the camera? It doesn't matter. And it's just unusual. It makes you think. It makes you wonder. And as you wonder about it, it becomes, as much about you as about him. And you get to fill in all these little mysteries with your own experience. And then, mathematically, it's just perfect. Like if I were to draw a line here, like across here, and, there's this thing called the golden ratio, right? It's the ratio of 1 to 1.618. Yeah. So like over here, this is 1.618, and over here is 1, right? That's right where the sharpness begins. And it's actually perfectly reflected on the other side. Now, he doesn't think about this when he does it, but it's right there. It's evident. He doesn't have to think about it because it's just there. It's mathematically beautiful, too. And even the ratio of all the colors, if you take this number, oh, sorry, I was trying to draw a circle around. If you take this number and break it into percentages, it comes to something like 62%, 23%, 15%. And that's pretty much the breakdown of colors he has. He has 62% reds. He has about 23% greens and blues, and about 10, 15% wild card purples and blacks. And I mean, it's just you don't have to think about all this stuff or even know it. It just is beautiful and interesting and wonderful. And that's one of the reasons that I bought this photo from him. I went to his Smug Mug site and I bought it. It's going to hang in my new home here in New Zealand. I can't wait to get it up, and I encourage everybody to go support Thomas or other favorite internet artists and go buy their prints and support him, because he does this for the love of it, and he doesn't need or necessarily want the money, but it's just a tip to a fellow artist, and I think he's a great guy. And anyway, I'll go ahead and unscreen share there and just say, anyway, Thomas, just stay awesome.
Well, now I'm super embarrassed. You're right. Thank you, Trey. That's quite an endorsement, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate your friendship and your influence on me and my work, and the ability to watch you work and learn more about you. I think this whole thing, social media that we're involved with, and you and I have been involved with it for a long time, even before Google+. And, there's so many great relationships that come out of it, and I'm so fortunate to have been able to meet people like you and get to know you and spend time. And same with everybody on the show. I mean, I've met all of you through social media, and some of you even before Google+. So, it's a wonderful thing, and I appreciate those kind words. It is a little humbling in a way. I mean, it's...
Well, Thomas, one of the reasons I asked Trey to drop in if he had time to do so is because you have given so much, and you have been so much to so many people that, he's one of the few people who's just so beautifully able to to say what it is you've contributed and why we wanted you on the show and what we wanted to convey about you. He has such an elegant way of doing that, and thank you, Trey, for doing that. That was exactly what I wanted to get across overall about Thomas on this show, because you're so phenomenal, and you get your due.
Well, thank you.
Okay, well, I'll let you guys go. Thomas, I'm going to throw you back into this gaggle of women and the mustachioed Clifford.
Trey,
he's the only one.
Trey, before you go, do you want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
mention
Your thing.
your thing?
No. This is all about Thomas. Don't worry
All
about
right,
that.
I'll mention it later then. I know it's all about Thomas.
Yeah.
Everything's always about Thomas.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Trey Ratcliff. I really appreciate you coming by.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
See you later. I look forward to it. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, there you have it.
Surprise!
I love that guy. So
I
great.
love that guy too. He's just doesn't he just have the most amazing way of saying things? Just
Yes.
Sure
Yeah.
does.
He does. He's very insightful, and he's an amazing, generous, emotional human being. And I'm lucky to have met Trey and to call him a friend. And he's an incredibly talented photographer, of course, but he's also an amazing human being and this person. And I'm really, really glad that I've gotten to become friends with him.
Yeah. Well, I just think there's something really cool that happens when you two are together that I just wanted to. I don't know. It's just lovely. It's just lovely. I'm really glad he did that. And you've given so much to this community, and I just was hardly even sure, where to start. I know I met you on the very first photo walk. Wasn't it the very first one?
Yeah, that was a nice surprise of Trey, by the way. I love seeing him. Yeah, the first Google Plus photo walk, Karen. That's where we met for the first time. Yeah.
Now, I want to say that what Trey brought to the table and what Thomas brings to the table with us tonight is what embodies the experience all of us have had here. One of the things that I found quite amazing was at first knowing about Thomas and then beginning to interact with him and then discovering kind of the human behind all the pictures through this whole Google Plus experience. So I think that what Trey had mentioned embodies the whole Google Plus experience because of guys like you, Thomas, for sure.
Well, I think one of the things that I think Google Plus does really right is it enables us to interact on such a more meaningful level. And in some ways, I think with Flickr before, which I was very actively involved with, some of us were pushing the envelope with Flickr. So, going to Miami, hanging out with Anna and Michelle and Shannon and all these great people, that was not the norm for Flickr. That was kind of, okay, these are some really hardcore users that have sort of gone out on their own to create these relationships and these in-person experiences. But Google Plus, it seems it's really, the model of it is built around that. Hangouts is huge. Hangouts are huge.
Big game changer.
Yeah, total game changer. When we can sit here and talk to each other face to face and verbalize and, it's not quite the same as like hanging out and shooting together on a photo walk or something like that or spending time, but it's pretty darn close. And the fact that you can do them pretty frequently and just, I don't know. Kerry, we were friends on Flickr for years, right?
Yeah. And Zoomer.
And Zoomer. Yeah, that's right. And and we knew each other in a way, knew each other through each other's work. But, I feel like I know you so much better now.
And I think what is fascinating is when you do finally meet the person that you've hung out with.
Yeah.
You know them. It's not awkward. It's like, hey. It's really just an extension of what you've seen in a hangout, which is pretty cool.
I know it was very nerve-wracking for me to do my first hangout. And I remember Thomas had invited me to a hangout, and I'm like, well, at least I know one person. And now I'm going to hang out with, 6 amazing people that I met through Google Plus. And guess what, Thomas? This is very appropriate, but happy 1-year anniversary to me for being on Google Plus when you sent me the invite and said join. today.
Hey, all right.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Well, I'm glad we got you. I'm glad we got you. I mean,
You pushed a lot of people onto Google Plus to make this great community.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was kind of selfish with that because, you know, I saw Google Plus and I saw the potential early on, and I said, wow, this thing is a game changer. This is a whole new thing for photography and photographers, and I mean, this is really something amazing and big. And selfishly, you know, I wanted all my favorite pals on here, you know, so, you know, people like you, Anna, and Kerry, and people that I knew before Google Plus started from Flickr. You know, I was massively pumping Google Plus on Flickr, and I'm sure they didn't like that, but, you know, trying to get people in here, you know. I mean, I see Billy Wilson in the chat room. Billy Wilson, man, I knew when I started Google Plus, I knew I had to get Billy Wilson over here, you know, because Billy Wilson is about as hardcore as they got on Flickr. And I said, Bill, this is going to be perfect for Billy. So I just kind of, you know, a lot of people, you know, I've invited a lot of people. I blogged about it. I posted about it on Flickr and other sites. And then I just kind of like personally tried to wrangle people on here that weren't on already and, you know, yanked them and pulled them in.
And now we have someone else who knows you.
I know this one.
April Joy Gutel. Hi. This is Thomas Hawk's sister, for those of you who don't know April, who we invited to come and say hello.
She's known than anybody in this room.
Yes.
Yes.
You know what's really ironic, too, is the way that relationships are built here is I have known April for almost a year, and I didn't know until last month that you were Thomas Hawk's sister.
Oh, yeah.
So you build relationships with people on your own, and then you discover the connections that are between them.
Yes.
I see the resemblance between your kids and April more.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
really
they've got
do.
those genes.
Those genes, those fabulous genes.
Yeah, well, I'm really glad my sister got involved with Google Plus, and she's an amazing photographer, and she's really developed, I think, a tremendous amount over the last year.
Agreed. Yes.
I'm learning. I'm having fun with it.
It's awesome. I love watching it. Good.
Well, what do you think about your brother? Did you hear the conversation earlier when Trey was here and all the rest of it?
I heard part of Trey's conversation. I had to join late, but what do I think about my brother?
Yeah.
He's a pretty cool guy. Yeah, you know, he's 7 years older, so I remember a lot from when he was in high school, and then he went to college, and I felt left out and abandoned. No, not really. I'm just kidding.
That's why we got the dirt on the ears.
That was awesome, by the way.
Yes.
Sorry,
I will say, April saw some of my most embarrassing years. Here's a story. Speaking of the high school girlfriends, I did have a somewhat serious girlfriend in high school. And at the time in high school, I had a job. I was working for Eric Edwards Photography Studios, where you would call people and set portrait appointments and all that. And whoever got the most for the month got a family portrait done. A big, giant 18 by 26 family portrait. So rather than bring my family in there, I took my girlfriend in there, and the two of us got this shot. And it's this huge thing. And, of course, we broke up, as every high school relationship does, or most do. And it ended up stuck in the attic at our house for about 10 years. until one Christmas, years later, after I think I was already married, years later, one Christmas, I opened up a Christmas present from my brother. I think it was Tim. I was excited, and I opened it up at Christmas time. And what was it? It was that portrait. 26 portrait of my high school girlfriend. So,
wow.
I think I was wearing a blue sweater with a gold chain. You know, it looked
you look very fun.
Oh, God. Now you have to share
He was
it.
carrying a briefcase.
Yeah, you know, unfortunately, after that, there was I think it went back up in the attic, and there was a fire in our garage, and the garage burnt down. So I think it is no longer.
Fortunately. Fortunately.
Evidence.
Funny how that happens.
That's why they call me the Firebug.
It's Firebug.
Was that the name of your rock band, Thomas? I heard that, like most artists, you have many artistic pursuits, and one of them happened to have been a rock and roll band, was it not?
I was in a band for about six months maybe in high school.
What did you play?
I sang. I did vocals.
Wow.
Which is embarrassing, yeah. My friend Gary Roverino. I think the band was called Atomic Clash. We were punk rock.
Oh, wow. Excellent.
Wow. Are there any videos of that era?
Negative. I sure hope not.
That would be awesome.
That's pretty fun.
No, that was embarrassing.
You have no photos of that?
No.
No.
Somebody says they would like to hear Mr. Hawk's singing voice.
No.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever heard him sing.
It was
Really?
more in high school it was more screaming voice, it was punk rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The top of your lungs.
Carry a tune.
Yeah, in high school I was really into punk rock. I'd go to a lot of punk rock shows, and Black Flag and the Circle Jerks and the Ramones and X and Wasted Youth and all these bands, Social Distortion and Bad Religion. Those were all the punk bands in the 80s in California, and we'd go down and check them out and hang out.
I have a question for you that harkens back to the something you said earlier that is sort of stuck in my claw. Not in a bad way. It's a good thing. One of the things Trey said he likes about you so much, which is one of the things I love about you so much too, and I cannot for the life of me seem to get my hands on it, but your ability to just not care. Again, you care, but you just don't. You've given me that advice before. Just don't give it any importance, and I'll sit there and like worry stone just about things.
Snort some more.
Yeah, I'll snort some more and just fuss at it. But you really do have that ability to just. Is that something you learned?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think in part, I spent a lot of years in social media before Google Plus came along, and probably the biggest training ground for all that stuff was back at Flickr, this Delete Me Uncensored group that I was involved with for years, and they were the most horrible people in that group. They were awful, some of them. They were really terrible. And Flickr has no blocking tools, and at the time the group was uncensored, so we would just let everybody say whatever they wanted, and Flickr actually nuked the group at one point. But I think I kind of, after a while, just sort of realized that there's some really terrible people out there, and it doesn't matter what they think of you, and there will always be haters. There will always be haters. And I see these folks on Google Plus even, they come out of the woodwork, and I can't remember the one guy, I can't remember his name, but he would come out and say, oh, Elena Collis is like horrible, and she's the devil, and Trey Ratcliff is blah, 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 this. And, there's just people that are jealous, and they're haters, and you just want to tear people down. And fortunately for us, Google has an amazing blocking system on Google Plus. So I've got kind of to the point where I don't let that stuff bother me, because I just expect it. It's going to be out there. There are going to be haters. And every successful person in any way ends up with haters for whatever reason, and so I don't take it personally. I discount it. I don't think there's been anybody who I said, oh, well, I really respect that person immensely, and they've said something really terrible and critical, which that might be different. If all of a sudden Trey Ratcliff said, well, you're doing this, blah, 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 I would probably pay attention, and that would probably affect me. But these just sort of random little people on the internet that are just kind of spouting off and jealous and,
the ones who are hiding behind the anonymity of the internet.
Oh, a lot of them are, yeah, a lot of them are. And that's, in some ways, that's where I think, I know a lot of people have been critical of Google for this sort of, real names thing.
For that reason.
Yeah, which is you know, in a way I've gotten some heat over that because Thomas Hawk isn't my legal name, although it is my real name as a photographer. But I think where people are trolls and people do stuff, I mean, I have a kind of like a zero tolerance. I mean, if I see somebody who's mean to somebody else, and it doesn't even have to be me, especially not me. I mean, if someone goes and I see them like bashing Karen or, you know, anybody else, it's like, well, you know, screw that person.
Yeah. It's not worth my time. I'm gonna read that.
Who wants that negative energy? You know, who wants to?
Yeah.
It zaps creativity. I mean, creativity is about being positive and about creating things and doing interesting things. And you can't get mired down in the politics and the personalities of these people that are just so want to tear you down. So I've always just, you know, it's like water off a duck's back. You know, it hits. You know, you see it all the time. And it's like, yeah, whatever. Who cares?
The thing that I always remember is that if you let them affect you, then they've won. Why let them win?
That's so true. That's so true. And in fact, I think I learned that the hard way. You know, back in the old days with Flickr and DMU. You know, sometimes people would go crazy like that, and I would go after them. You know, and I've got a blog and a big following, and I would say, you know, you blah blah blah. You know, you know,
bleep, censor.
Right. You know, you're giving somebody a death threat. Really, you blah blah blah. So you know, I would really go after them, and you know, I don't even do that. You know, I don't do that anymore. It's like, what's the point? I don't want negative energy in my life.
It just takes one click.
How did you finally decide you wanted only positive energy? Or how did, you know, because some people never realize that what they're doing is creating more of what they don't like by spouting off. You somewhere along the line had that epiphany. How did that happen?
I think I just realized that that time, that, you know, there's only so much time in your life. You only have so many minutes. And, you know, like I say, I want to publish 1 million photos before I die. I only have so many minutes to do that. And if I want to spend 2 hours getting in an internet fight with some jerk, you know, that's 2 hours of really super valuable wasted time.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I realized that it's not only impacting your creativity because it puts your head in a bad place and it has you, like, spinning around and angry and not wanting to process photos and not wanting to do stuff, but literally these, like, debates and these long-ranging things, you know, they could take 2 hours. And that's a lot of time to devote to something like that. And most of the time what people are bitching about is not, it's not important. It's not relevant.
Yeah. And there's no outcome, really, at the end of it all.
No, there's not. So, I mean, I've got a low tolerance. I block lots of people. You know, I block people all the time. It's like, oh, well, that person was a jerk to somebody. You know, I don't want that in my experience. You know, I don't want that. And if somebody, I mean, there's a difference between being respectful and disagreeing with somebody.
Yes, definitely.
Because I very much value that. I very much value that. I very much value contrary opinion. I think we can learn a lot from our critics even. But when it becomes personal and it becomes hateful and spiteful and all that, I just, boom, gone.
Yeah.
You taught me to do that. I do that now all the time.
Good. You should.
Yeah. It really helps. It really helps because, you know, this whole experience that we're trying to create something here not only for ourselves in our creativity or in our photography work or whatever, but we're creating something that's even bigger than all of that. And yeah, what occurred to me is that it just, you don't have time. I barely have time to keep up with the good stuff, much less deal with any of the crap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to deal with the crap. And, you know, and starting Delete Me Uncensored, part of our point on Flickr was, well, hey, you know, we want criticism. The whole point was everybody on Flickr, it's a nice photo, wow, great, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of people did want to get better. And so, you know, when we created that, I was like, well, we'll create a forum where we'll say, okay, I'm a big boy, you know, I got my big boy pants on, and I could throw up this photo now, and if people want to tell me what's wrong with it, hopefully I can learn from it. But even that didn't really work, you know. People would just end up saying, you know, oh, this makes me want to go throw up behind my barn.
Right. It's not
and you're like, okay, well, that wasn't very constructive. So, and in part, I think that's part just Flickr's got a problem with trolls and anonymous accounts and all that. You know,
there's
like that.
the question asked in the, which is right along with what you're saying in the chat about how do you separate the Flickr hug, which you know more about than I do, but from the constructive feedback from haters, which I'm not sure there is any, but there might be. Is it like RC says that it's share, not critique?
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what RC says there. It should be share, not critique. I mean, personally speaking, I don't think you should bash somebody else's work unless they're asking you to.
Right.
Unless somebody, every now and again I'll see a photo online and it'll be like, oh, you totally cropped that wrong and the sunset's all wrong and the colors are wrong and what were you thinking? This looks like a bad print from IKEA.
Yeah.
You know? And you're like,
I didn't say it like that.
No, not you, Ron.
Yeah.
It was me, Ron. It was me.
Oh,
yeah. I remember. I think it was Suzanne Haggerty's one of her photos. Somebody said something like this, and I'm like, dude, just leave her alone. Nobody's asking for your opinion. I mean, I think there's a point where you can say, okay, I want this, and I want this sort of opinion. I think even when you give criticism, it's got to be done gently, and it's got to be done in the right way. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't want to dig. You don't want to.
Encouraging goes a whole lot further than a critical comment. I mean, it's called a critique, but it should be called an encouragement. You can identify problems with an image without tearing it apart.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yeah.
I think it also comes down to who's critiquing. Because if one of you said something to me about, oh, this is bad, or if your photo will improve by this, I'd be like, thanks, guys. No, but if someone, random or someone I really admired from afar said something, I'd be like, either be like, I don't give a crap what you think, or, oh my God, I didn't like my picture.
The worst I've seen, though, weren't even critiques on photos. Like, I had one the other day when I shared about my grandfather passing, and the guy came on there, and he's like, it was explicatively laden, asking me what my deal was, why anybody would give a shit. I mean, he went full out on me, and I looked at that and I was like, you know what? I don't need this. Delete block. Delete block. I love that. That's the best thing ever. Delete block.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it is. It is. And, the other thing with photography, I mean, I'm a big believer in something that I call, the democracy of photography. And that is, and I think it's, this is an idea that comes out of William Eggleston, who's one of my heroes, and that I've kind of borrowed from him and made my own, maybe in a different way than he intended. But I kind of look at photographs, and I don't think there's any such thing as, like, a good photograph and a bad photograph. I mean, I think an image is an image, and an image is something that's created, and, Eggleston talks about the democracy of photography, and he would talk about how he would go to the drugstore and watch all the snapshots coming out of the 24-hour photo developing thing to get ideas for photos. And it's like, just sort of this average American experience of making photos and these sort of snapshot thing. And, I don't know. I mean, how do you really objectively say this is a phenomenal photograph and this is a crappy photograph? I mean, can you really?
No, it's really just how it resonates with you. It's opinion.
Individual art. It's what's coming out of that person, and sometimes you learn something more from yourself when you look at somebody else's work.
Right.
Even if you don't like it, it causes you to look further, deeper into what you do as art. That would be the best critique.
Yeah, and the best critique or share or whatever you want to call it. The thing that always irks me about it is no one ever asks a question. They don't say, well, what were you going for? What were you thinking? How are you, like, to try to get behind. They immediately apply their point of view, whatever it is.
No, Karen,
although, Jay Patel does it that way that you just said. If you ever get a critique from him, he will do that exactly. What were you thinking, or what did you want to portray with this image? And then from there, he will give you the critique and talk to you about how to make your image the way you want to make it, not the way he thinks you need to make it.
Right. And he's got the knowledge base to back it up, too.
Exactly.
Yes, he does.
I
Me
had
and
an
Verena both
interesting
do.
experience. Just yesterday, I had someone comment on my first post ever that I had. Everyone was sharing their first posts, and mine was of an old car, close up through the window, black and white. And they asked a question, and they were very clear that they weren't being condescending or critical, but they asked me if I felt taking a picture of something somebody else did, in this case a beautiful restoration of a car, was art. And they did it in a way that wasn't critical. They weren't telling me I wasn't an artist by photographing somebody else's work or creation. They were asking how I felt about it, and it actually led to a good conversation. But that's the exception and not the rule. That he had asked me in a constructive way if I felt what I was doing would be considered art by photographing what somebody else had created in this restored car. It was a good conversation, and like I say, it's the exception.
I think good conversations can come out of that, but I think ultimately people's opinion about what is art and what's not art. I remember early on in Flickr in the DMU group, you would post a photo, and then people would vote save or delete on the photo.
I did one. I think I could do it more than once.
They would explain why they
so I felt
liked this photo. Validated. Yeah, there was so somebody decides to be a wise ass and post a photo of Mario's bike. I don't know if you guys know that photograph, but it's a famous photograph by Cartier-Bresson. And it's taken from a balcony in France, and it's looking down, and the bike's blurred, and it's amazing. I mean, it got deleted, of course, as it would.
I remember this.
And it's amazing reading the comments on it. The guy's like, well, can't you just come back a different day and try to get the bike in focus? And somebody else, really are, offering this dribble criticism of, I mean, the man who's, by many at least, regarded as the greatest photographer who's ever lived.
Yes.
One of his most famous photographs. And so you have to discount a lot of that stuff. And I don't even know, it's like, back to sort of the democracy of photographs, I mean, with art in general. I mean, one of my favorite artists is Mark Rothko, and he's a beautiful artist, but all he does, it's like splotches of colors, 2 splotches of colors. And, even Eggleston, when Eggleston, he had the first color show at MoMA in New York in 1968, and Ansel Adams at the time pitched a fit. He wrote a letter to Sarkowski and said, this is a tragedy, and how can you do this? And this guy takes color pictures of tricycles, and it was the first color show ever at MoMA, and in retrospect, I think it was a fantastic, amazing thing, and Eggleston is clearly regarded as a master, I think, today. But here you have one of the greatest photographers also who ever lived, Ansel Adams, saying that this work is absolute rubbish and absolute crap. And so who can you listen to? You can't listen to random people on the internet. You can't listen to even Ansel Adams telling you this is crap, or Jay Patel, or anybody. I mean, I think everybody's got to look at their own work, and it's got to say either this speaks to me, or this is something that I'm proud of and I created, or it's not. And I think it sits there. I mean, I don't think there's any criticism. I don't think there's any valid critique beyond that.
Excellent point.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. I always feel like if it speaks to my heart, then it's perfect in my eyes.
There is a point, though, when somebody is putting it out there for the world and becomes offended when people aren't buying it from the gallery, and they're this happens an awful lot too. The artist becomes very critical of the people not buying their obviously amazing work. It's kind of flip-sided then, because the artist is clearly doing it not just for the love of art, but to be recognized as a genius and to sell or monetize their work. So what I've seen in the past, and quite frequently, is the artist saying, my work is great, nobody's buying it, what's the matter?
And I think that's okay, because I think oftentimes, even what ultimately is considered great art, I mean, there are so many great artists that will never be recognized, that will never have the recognition, and that are found after they die. years later. And there are artists that are recognized while they're alive. And there are artists that, you know, I mean, a lot of that doesn't matter. I think a lot of it is commercial application of it. And it's nice to be recognized, and it's nice to be financially rewarded for your art. But I don't know. I think great art comes from within. I don't think it's commercially motivated.
Totally. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, totally.
And that's why so many of us are so broke. No. Because they're so internally motivated.
Well, that opens up a whole other portion of this conversation, but we're gonna take a break right here. We're gonna restart the hangout. We're gonna end it here. We also have a giveaway. We have 2 giveaways.
Yay for giveaways!
Yay for giveaways! We love giveaways. We love giving to our audience because they give so much to us, and
So hopefully everybody was paying attention.
yes, because the questions we're going to ask for the giveaway were based on what we've been talking about. So what's going to happen is the chat will stay. Don't go away. We're going to stop the hangout, restart it with everybody on board, and we'll be back in just a couple of minutes. So thank you for the first part of this. We'll be right back.
See you in a minute.